Hello Linux fans, Rob here. Wanted to give a quick channel update, and then I've got some deep thoughts and questions for you. So just a quick channel update. I have not abandoned Linux Quest. I know it's been several days since I've released a video, but I do have some things coming up in way of distro reviews and things like that, so please stay tuned. I've been extremely busy with work, traveling quite a bit and those kinds of things, and travel makes it really hard sometimes to really spend the time with a distro and do a review or to check out software as you would like. So look forward to kicking back off with some more videos. All right, so I'm going to title this again, Deep Thoughts and Questions, and it's going to pertain to Windows. So recently I used my daughter's Windows 10 laptop. It's a basic Dell 15-inch. To install some CNC software that I need for work, basically for training purposes, and it runs solely on Windows. Now, for those of you who follow Linux Quest, you'll know that I'm not going to say I am 100% Linux. I mean, all of my main machines are Linux. There are times when I'll revert to, say, my daughter's laptop for that one Windows-specific piece of software that I need access to for a particular reason. Typically, it's for work. All right. So I had to install this CNC software, and as I'm booting into her laptop, I'm starting to think, for whatever reason, this popped in my head. Don't know why. Don't know where it came from. But nevertheless, my thought was, could I switch back to Windows full-time? Now that I've seen everything that the Linux world has to offer in operating systems, primarily in fantastic software and I think a great community, could I ever go back to Windows full-time? So that thought was flashing through my head as I was booting into Windows. Now the first thing I had to do was connect a USB flash drive, or excuse me, a USB hard drive to, it's a Western Digital, to the laptop so that I could copy the program over, the exe file over, to start the install. So boot into Windows, and I plug in the Western Digital. I go into the file manager, which I really like. I think they've done a great job with their file explorer. If you were to do a comparison to the Linux side of things, you've got Dolphin, which I think is on par with Windows File Explorer. But I launch into the Start menu, and you've got all these tiles. Now, I realize you can delete all those tiles, and you can make Windows 10, for the most part, look very similar to Windows 7. However, my daughter had not done that, and you had all these tiles, and, they're supposed to be interactive, and there were all these benefits to the tiles, but the majority of them are not, and they're just kind of in your way. So that was the first kind of thing where I hit the Start menu, and I'm like, ugh. It just, why is all of this here? So anyway, into the File Explorer, I've plugged in the Western Digital, but then I look over to the taskbar settings, and there's the icon there where it's kind of animation in place telling me that it's trying to find the information on that Western Digital drive. Not to install a driver, but it's like digging for info, because Windows likes to show you the product name and any other details about the particular external hardware that you're plugging in to Windows or into the device or into the system, and you can then go into Control Panel and see that information. I get it. But instead, you've got this 3 or 4 minute long process where it's sitting there just trying to pull this information in, and then finally, after about, seriously, 3 to 4 minutes, it says your device is ready. Now, I didn't wait to go into that external drive. I was able to go in and see the drive and access it, but for someone who didn't know better, they may sit there and wait 4 or 5 minutes thinking, well, this drive is not ready to use. And the fact that that whole process even has to happen, it was just one of those things that kind of really stood out, where before, when I was solely a Windows user, I wouldn't have thought about it. I'd have just said, well, that's just part of it, and moved on. Well, I was able to go in and get the exe file, get the CNC software set up. The next thing I had to do during that setup process was go to an external website for the directions on getting the database structure and everything for the CNC control software all set up properly. So I went to the external link, which on her system defaulted to Google Chrome. What happens? Google Chrome launches, and instead of going directly to the page and allowing me to navigate and do what I wanted to do, I get the message, and this is not, in quotes here, this is not verbatim, but the software is not responding, and it's sitting there doing nothing, and you get the spinny wheel or whatever. Actually, I don't think it's a spinny wheel now. I think it's some other animation. But anyway, it's not usable, and it sits there, and at this point now I'm thinking, I want to see how long this is going to take. So I sat there for maybe 2 minutes just kind of watching this thing to see if it's going to close itself or see what happens. Nothing happens. So what do? You hit Control-Alt-Delete. And then so that pops up the list of programs that are running, and so I close out Chrome. And then from there, I went into Edge and pasted the link and was able to get to the page I needed to and complete setting up the CNC software. This whole process, and I'm not saying anything here was catastrophic, and I'm not saying that my daughter, who is 16 years old, keeps her Windows system in prime condition. There were many updates that needed to be approved for the update process, things like that. She obviously hasn't gone in and deleted tiles that she doesn't use and things like that, so things looked cluttered. Taking all of that into account, there were enough wiggles, niggles, or whatever you want to call them. I'm going to call them annoyances that would, I guess, after running really nice Linux distros where you don't experience a lot of those problems, it was just kind of an eye-opener. And I am proud and thrilled to say that, and you know what, you never say never, but I couldn't ever foresee going back to using Windows full time. Not when we have just a huge selection of high quality operating systems through the Linux world to use. Thanks to all of you developers for all the hard work, and the community and everyone else involved, people who are working on all the software that we use within Linux. It's just a joy to know that we have great options. Now, I don't hate Windows. I thoroughly enjoyed running Windows 7. Windows 8 was as bad almost for me as Windows Vista. And then let's not even talk about Windows ME, but anyway, I enjoyed Windows 7. Windows 10 is an improvement, and yes, you can go in and delete all the tiles and really, for the most part, make Windows 10 look like Windows 7. But it doesn't matter. I love using Linux, and I am a thankful person for the entire Linux community, for all of the hard work that goes into creating some phenomenal operating systems, some phenomenal software to run on those operating systems. And so the question comes to this. So that was all the deep thought stuff. Not really that deep, shallow thought. Maybe I should call it shallow thought. What about you? I know that there are many of you out there who dual boot. There are cases where you have to dual boot, and then there are cases where you dual boot for gaming and that kind of thing. And I get it. I'm not coming down on you. Again, I'm not a Windows hater. I just much prefer Linux. But my question to you is, could you ever foresee switching back to, if you're a Linux user, switching back to Windows full-time? So that's question number one. If you're a Linux user, could you foresee switching back to Windows full-time? That's, again, question number one. Question number two, are you at a point now to where you're thinking about switching back to Windows? Maybe you're a 50-50 Linux user and you've just decided that you're going to switch to Windows, that's a better operating system. Maybe that's where you are right now. Or question number three, Are you a Windows user and you're on the verge, you've had it, you're done, you're looking for an alternative operating system, and you've decided Linux is going to be that new operating system? Is that you? Is that where you are now? So those are just a couple of questions for you. I'd love for you to post your comments to this vlog. I'd love to hear from you on that. Are you 50-50 because you're living in a world where you have Windows for work, and then when you're done with work, you switch over to Linux? Are you 70-30 because you're gaming 30% of the time on your machine, and so you switch over to Windows? So those are the kinds of things I'd love to hear from you on. And especially if you are fed up with Windows for whatever reason and you're getting ready to make the switch, then I'd really love to hear from you. And I would love to hear things like, you know, what about Linux, you know, was interesting to you? You know, what distros are you looking at or considering as your first distros? Things like that, I think makes for great conversation, and I love hearing that kind of thing. So look forward to your comments. Haven't done a vlog like this by myself, I don't think ever. So appreciate it and look forward to your feedback. We'll talk to you later.